All right. Anna, you want to make a local recording?
Sure thing.
Let's see, allow to
Yeah.
record local file. I think enabled you to make a local recording. Ah, got it. All right.
Nice.
Look at that. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being audio video recorded. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Please address all comments to the chair. This meeting of the Conservation Commission is being held by Zoom at the link provided with this notice. If you're watching at home or on YouTube, the Zoom meeting ID code is 812-8378-2929. And the passcode is 468905. As always, the agenda of the meeting with the Zoom link may be found on the Lunenburg Town Calendar on the Lunenburg website. And that's true for all meetings of all committees that meet by Zoom. I'm Bob Pease. I'm the chair. We'll do a roll call. Let's see who is here and who can speak and be listened to. Rich Birch, Jeff Viviano, Katie Childs,
Present.
Mike LaRouche,
Present.
Mary Wilson,
Here.
Rich Tremblay,
Present.
and that's it. Are there any announcements from commissioners or public comments? I would just say I watched a webinar today at noon. I think it was part of the Massachusetts Open Space Conference on beavers and how they're important to the environment. But the part that I was most interested in is new beaver deceivers that you can use, so you can take and eliminate the effects of the beaver dam, without killing the beaver. And this guy has a consulting business that specializes in that, and he goes all over the state. And he has some great designs, which I think we can use here. And I'm actually going to send it to also to Bill, Bill Bernard, the director of DPW. Are there any public comment from members of the public? Let me make sure I got my participant list up and going so I can see if anyone's raised their hand. Yeah, I see no one's raised their hand. So we're going to go into our first thing, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, January 4th. I believe that Anna, you sent those out, and I sent you back track changes, and you posted them on the website. Am I correct on that, Anna?
They should have been posted, yes.
All righty, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of January 4th.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion by Mike, second by Katie. Roll call. Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Our first appointment is 23 Cove Road Enforcement. I see Tracy Galoni is here. Tracy, do you have something you wanted to say?
Evening, Mr. Peace. This is actually Robert.
Okay.
Using my wife's laptop again, because she doesn't let me buy my own. We don't have any comments. We would prefer to hear what the board has to say, and then we can comment or respond accordingly.
All right, and so I would just comment that we, the Galonis, thought that, there was a lack of consistency in our previous enforcement efforts here, so we referred the matter to town council. Town council recommended that the only open issue is, the greenhouse. And so, he recommended that we, close out the previous enforcement order, open a new enforcement order for just the greenhouse. And that does two things. One, for the commission, it gives us a clean process, and for the Galonis, it establishes their appeal rights. Before this, because of the time that had passed, for one reason or another, they had lost their right to appeal. So this would take and reestablish their appeals right. I think the facts of the case are well known to everyone. And so, is there any discussion first before I ask for a motion? I'm going to ask for a motion in a minute to issue an enforcement order to tell the Galonis they have to take down or move the greenhouse to an area that's outside the 50-foot no structure zone. Is there any discussion before then?
If I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Galoni.
So, Mr. Peace, so we don't disagree with taking down the greenhouse. I think we've already agreed to take down the greenhouse.
Oh,
It's not going to be necessary to appeal that decision. I think we said in the last meeting that if that's what's going to appease everybody, we would take the greenhouse down. The only thing we were asking for is consideration in the timing, only because of being the winter months, not to disturb that area any more than it needs to, and obviously for warmer weather to be able to work out there to take it down. So that had already been previously decided. What I would ask for in regards, I have no issues with the new enforcement order, and I don't believe my wife does either. I get it. You want to start with a clean slate, and we agree to that. So if we do change our mind to decide to appeal it, we can, which we thank you for that. But there has been some new information that we have come across that we haven't had a time enough to prepare for you or for the board, that we would ask for a continuance so that we can pull that information together and present it to the board before any decision is actually decided on and confirmed, with the understanding that you're still going to be filing the new enforcement order regarding the greenhouse.
so Mr. Galoni, given the length this is going on, would 2 weeks or however long it is to our first meeting in February be enough time for you?
I think 2 weeks is acceptable, and if there's a problem with us not being able to pull everything together prior to that 2 weeks, we certainly will attend that meeting and let the board know where we stand and why there's been a delay.
All right. Well, I as one member, does anyone on the commission have a problem with taking this matter up again in 2 weeks? Seeing no comments, hands, people waving at the screen, then I'm just going to, this is not a public hearing. I'm just going to tell you right now, Mr. Galoni, we'll put this on the agenda again at the beginning of the meeting as a courtesy to you in 2 weeks.
And what would that date be, Bob?
That'll be the first Tuesday in February, which is February 1st.
Great. Okay, I just want to take note of that. And on a side note, I did hear a little bit banter of everybody's issues with the lake and their valuation of their taxes. Just as a side note, I do feel for all of you, even though it doesn't impact us as much as it does. I know several of the board members live on the lake. We personally think it's disgusting, and I've already expressed my disgust. But what I want to say is that some of the information that we have discovered has to do with records being out of date. Not only in regards to our issue, but also in regards to the tax records with the town.
Thank you so much, Mr. Galoni. We're gonna
You are
now.
very welcome.
I actually have one question. You
Sure.
know, that the enforcement was closed on the previous. So the initial enforcement has been closed, correct?
Or you're
That's
voting.
correct.
Okay, so what do we get for notification, something in writing that that's been closed out.
Anna, can you respond to that question?
I don't believe that there's a specific type of paperwork to like be sending out, but I can create a letterhead pretty much saying that this is the decision that we had come to and that it is.
I'm assuming the notes would be in the file anyways.
Yeah, we pretty much, it's on file, but it's no specific like actual piece of paper that would say like this is void now, but I can create a letterhead saying
Yeah.
that
We would appreciate that.
and it would be put on file. Yes,
Great.
We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Anna. I'd like to move on now to the annual report from the Hickory Hills landowners presented by John Fortune.
All right, one quick thing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and if I could, I know it's out of order, but I'd like to thank Mr. Galoni as well for his research that he sent to the office. I actually reviewed some of that, and it's very helpful. So thank you for that. All right, I'm John Fortune. I
You're
am
very welcome.
president of Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc. I have been, you've seen me plenty of times here, so I think we know kind of who we are and what we're doing. I have a presentation, I hope, and I'd like to share that with you tonight. I did share it with the board. I think I sent it in last Thursday, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, but if not, we're going to go through it slide by slide anyways. So if I am allowed, I'm going to try.
I believe I
and-
enable screen sharing. Let me look at the security settings. I have not, but I have now.
There I am. All right. Very good. All right, you should be able to see the presentation.
Yeah, you can also see the side panel and all that. If you click on slideshow, we'll just be looking at the
It's not a lot. Are you seeing just a slideshow now?
nope,
There it is.
there you go.
There you are. And now I've lost all you. That's kind of the problem with this.
You don't need to see my ugly face.
I guess I don't. I like to see reactions, but we'll go the way we're going. All right, so this is the Hickory Hills update to Lunenburg Conservation today, and it's presented for Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc. by myself, and there are contributing members that are listening or on standby as well that can help us. All right, per the order of conditions issued last July, these were the things that were asked to be summarized on a yearly basis. So the summary of the early summer conditions, descriptions of survey methodologies, description of the annual drawdown, summary of all treatment activities in the prior year, results of our microphyte surveys and maps, semi-qualitative evaluation of the macrophyte cover and biomass, map and table of the water quality data, evaluation comparison of differences in metrics, evaluation of all treatment methods that we've done, a report fish data, including any fish kills, documentation of outreach and education of the landowners in the watershed, documentation of stormwater control activities, and documentation of erosion control activities as well. So these are all within the report. They're not necessarily in this order. They're in the order I felt that they flowed the best. All right, so survey methodology and description. We have an organized survey or surface monitoring of the lake. We do this with individual residents and with our security team that's on the lake daily. So they all are the people who help us look around the lake and find whether it be fanwood or algae or other problems that we might have on the lake. These are the people that do it. We also have, and I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail. We also have divers in the water. We're pretty proud of the amount of time that divers have spent. And I think when you see that in the next slide, you're going to be impressed as well. We have had water quality analysis done by volunteers and by laboratories, and vegetation survey done by ESS, now TRC. All right. So survey and weed extraction team with our certified divers. This, as I said, is really has been a pretty impressive program. If you look over here, we had people spending 662 hours out on the lake, our volunteer hours, going through this year and making sure the lake is in great shape. We had over 220 hours of dive time underneath the water. So pretty impressive. We've got a great group of divers that are out there. They were out there 7 days a week this past year. They harvested over 23,000 plants, fanwort, all fanwort that we were removing from the lake. As you may recall, we did a full lake treatment a few years ago. Or for those of you even new on the board, we did a full lake treatment a few years ago. And now, as expected, the fanwort begins to come back. As you can see the difference between last year and this year, we pulled 3,800 plants last year. We pulled over 23,000 plants this year. We'll talk more about that in some areas of concern. But overall, you know, I don't know of any other lake that has this many dive hours, divers underneath the lake looking around, maintaining our body of water. Again, really a great amount of work. So during their time underneath the water and picking plants, they have discovered some areas that where fan water is growing more than in others. And so this, if you know where Bob lives, this is where his boat is parked over here. And this is an area here that has pretty extensive fanwort growth again. The other side of the peninsula from that area also in what we call 12, and I'll show you a full lake map in a few more slides, and you'll get a better idea where these are. But there's an area here. And although these were 2021 areas of concern, they were just as bad in 2022. So before we get to the end of this presentation, we're going to talk about being able to do some herbicide treatment in these 4 areas. This is Peninsula Drive. This is off the end of Peninsula Drive. And then this is off the east side of Peninsula Drive as well. And Bob, this is John Boyd's property right here. So just to give you an idea where that is. Okay. So our vegetation survey map, actually, I'll just back up. I just showed you that area, this area right here, and this area right here. That's what was highlighted in the last slide. Okay, so just give you an idea where it looks like on the whole map. So vegetation survey, we did plant coverage. So total plant coverage in the areas, and you can see red is real bad. It's basically 100% covered with plants. We see that a lot in Little Hickory, and we did some work on that this year to try to improve that. And then there's plant bio volume. So the amount of area in the water that the plants had taken up. And again, if we look at Little Hickory, this was pretty high. So, between on the edges, 25%, and this area along this edge is where we are doing the aeration. But in the other areas, up to 75% of the lake of the water column is covered in weeds. So we did some work on that, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay. This is our whole lake again, different map, but the 2 things I'm going to show you about this. One is our lake is all mapped out. So we have different zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 5. So we have zones, and in each of those zones, we have property numbers. So when we're trying to spot fanwort or algae or anything like that, we may be, someone could say it's in zone 4 off of property 55. And I would know to go to this area and look for that. And any one of our divers or anything else all go to these areas. So this map is universal. It's on almost everybody's boat. And this is what we use to identify any properties or any areas that need to be looked at on the lake. These large arrows are the areas where we did water quality testing. So this is a reference, I call it a reference location right here, and you'll see that in the next couple of slides. This reference is out in front of the dam along Townsend Harbor Road. There is a deep spot right in there. It's about 16 feet deep. And part of our reference testing is to do both surface and deep water testing. So we do that there. But we also, these other areas that we've done as well, we are tested, and we have the data on all that that's coming up. So we have one in Little Hickory, we have one near the beach on Island Road, we have one near the Mulpus Input. Oops, I moved ahead and I shouldn't have. How did I do that? We have them in different areas over by the boat docks and the woodlands, back in this deep cove and back in Hemlock Cove. Okay, so this area again is where these arrows are showing us where the next couple of slides of water quality test data is coming from. All right, so I mentioned the reference location in front of the dam. We have the bottom, so in this area, we do bottom testing, and we do that 3 times a year, spring, summer, and fall. And then we do in that same location, we use a tube, and I can't remember what the name of the tube is called, but we get deep water out of that as well. And so this gives us an idea of how we're doing both on the surface and in deep water. And it's interesting because when we look at some of these numbers, we begin to see things that stand out. Well, one, actually, dissolved oxygen is pretty decent throughout the year. But we're starting to see some higher numbers of phosphorus, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit further on in the presentation. But anything over 0.02, we begin to get uncomfortable with because it's getting more and more problematic. All right, so we begin to notice that even in the deeper areas. And I would say, on this particular date, which one was it I had? Well, in 2020, the deep location was 0.031, but the shallow location, that same location, but on the top of the water, was less than 0.01. So there is definite variation that we see, and it helps us determine if we're seeing, could be seeing algae blooms on the top or more and more phosphorus loading hitting the bottom of the lake. All helpful. And this is the Secchi disc. It gives us an idea of how deep we can see in the water. All right.
John,
Go ahead. Yep.
the 82522 bottom deepest 0.04 dissolved oxygen. You know what that's about?
I would say that's a problem with the readings.
Yeah,
I
that
did
would have
notice
been my
that.
guess also, but I just had to ask.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, but I would say that is that is an operator malfunction, I would guess. I
Yeah,
apologize. I didn't see that to correct it.
thank you, John.
I'm gonna take note of that. All right, the next slide. This is in August, we do multiple locations. This is actually a better slide. I will tell you that this year, this is the first time I've done this presentation to you. I've done other presentations. But as I was going through all the data, all the numbers, I would do this a little bit different way. This is helpful because we can see it from year to year. And I like that because I like to see what's happened year to year. With the last one is harder because it's all the years are broken up more. So I'm going to change some of the way we do this in the future, but unfortunately I ran out of time to be able to do that this year. But again, what was consistent across the lake in multiple locations, right? So the sample locations I talked to you about were off of Island Road or Hemlock Drive, which is where Hemlock Beach is, Brookview Beach, east side of Peninsula.
Sure.
I'm sorry, is there a question?
I can take it up. Oh, I got it. Thank you. All right. You know the right door, right?
I'm gonna mute that person.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's the person on the phone, and I just muted him.
Yeah, I know who that is. I recognize the voice. When we get the stormwater, we're gonna call on him. Anyways, dissolved oxygen was higher this year than most, which honestly, as I'm going through the data, I'm looking at it and it's consistently higher. It was in August, as you know, we were all in a drought. That was kind of a surprising information to me. And one of the things we don't capture well is what happened the day before, the night before. It could have been a rainstorm or something like that happened to increase those numbers, the dissolved action, a lot of wind action, etc. But But overall, the numbers consistently get higher, and it could be just because of the days. The other thing that was noticeable is, again, in some of our coves, deep in these coves, the phosphorus numbers were pretty low this year. So again, all, good data. As we start to get, as I mentioned, we start to get to 0.02, we get a little bit more concerned. But this is out in the main portion of the lake, at Island Road at the main beach. So, and there's a lot going on with looking at phosphorus in the lake. I'll talk about that some more as well. Okay. We have an algae problem. And as you know, probably better than I do, about 70% of algae is phosphorus. So the reason we're watching the phosphorus is because we don't want to get to this. And we have seen this more and more algae issues in the last couple of years. I will tell you, before we did the fanwort, the work to basically kill off the fanwort in the lake, we knew there was a lot of fanwort in the lake. And honestly, that fanwort was consuming a lot of the phosphorus. Because since we have knocked it back, we have had more and more algae problems, which is a result of having higher phosphorus in the lake. So we have seen that, and we saw it in a couple of places last year that our numbers got over 70,000, and we had to shut the lake down. A few days later, we were able to open the lake back up. We saw it in 2021 as well. It only happened once. This testing was all from one day. It happened 2 different times in 2022. All right. And the stormwater testing we're going to talk about in a bit shows the high levels of phosphorus coming into the lake and E. coli coming from upstream. So that's a real concern for us. Spring refill. So we talked about drawdown. Next one is going to be, the next slide is actually what the drawdown happened this fall. But during the spring of 2022, we on January 31st shut down 2 of the 8-inch siphons. So this picture shows you 4 8-inch siphons here. It shows you 3 8-inch siphons here and 1 6-inch siphon here. All right, this particular picture is a good one because there have been questions in the past about when there is no water running over the dam, does the other side of the dam dry up? And this clearly shows there is a lot of water. That water is about 2 feet deep, goes underneath Townsend Harbor Road, down to the beaver dams, etc. This was just not shut off. This is just water that's always there. So, if people come in the future and say, well, if we don't have water running over the dam, does everything downstream in the Malpas dry up? It does not. And this picture is a good picture to show us that it doesn't. But anyways, our siphons that we run on January 31st, we shut off basically everything but this last 6-inch siphon. We try to leave that running for 2 reasons. In the winter, as if the water is down this low and it's frozen, we want to bring this water back up, but slowly. It helps us in a couple of different ways. When we bring the ice up slowly, there is wind on the lake always, and there is agitation that happens. So the ice is helping us to rough up the edges and wipe out any roots that may be left on of fanwort or any other weeds that are along the shoreline. So it helps to dig that all up. The other thing is, if we bring the lake up slowly, the edges stay frozen. So we tend to bring it up with 1 or 2 siphons, depending on how much water is coming into the lake running. We just slow it down. This happened to us this year. We had 5 siphons running, but the rains that came, in middle of December were too much, and the water today is still flowing over the concrete portion of the dam here. But we'll get to that in a minute. So the lake was full to the concrete level. We consider full at this level when water is running over this concrete. This concrete here is about 5.5 inches higher than this concrete. So this is this concrete here is about 5.5 inches over this when it has 18 inches of boards in it. So when we put our boards in between these pylons that are here, the full summer level is 18 inches higher than this concrete, and this concrete is 5 inches higher than that full compound level, we call it. All right, so the lake was full on May 15th of 2022, after the boards were all in and water was going over the top of those boards. Okay. For drawdown this fall, you had asked us to keep track of the drawdown levels and what was happening. So we did that. We removed boards. No water was flowing over the concrete in Bay 4. Water was trickling over in Bay 9. So when we took all the boards out on 11/1, this is basically when we were starting the siphons, there was a little bit of water still trickling out over our 9th bay. And we count this, there are 4 bays here and 5 bays here. This is Bay 9. This happens to be the lowest bay in our dam. So that's what it was. The 18 inches, as I just talked about, was basically all the boards out. So we were at minus 18 inches. Our 0 level, we count as being at the top of the boards, full summer height. That's what we call 0. All right. So we started them. We went back down. We did a measurement. 6 days later, we had come down 10 inches. We're pulling out about 2 inches a day, which is what we've talked about in the past. That's about what our capacity to be able to pull water out. We went down on the 13th, and lo and behold, there was a beaver in the chamber. By the chamber, I mean this area right here. So we had a beaver go in there. I have no idea why, but it literally had to slide down the wall to get in there and splash around. When I went down to check it, it was there. So we had to do a rescue mission, and we were able to get him out. And I'll go ahead one slide. So I'm bouncing around, but this is what we did to get the beaver out. We put a ladder in, attached a pallet to it so the thing would climb up it. And sure enough, as soon as we put it in there, 2 minutes later, it was climbing out and off it went. The first time, because we got him out, and then the darn thing came back in again by the 18th. So a few days later, that beaver liked that place so much, it came back in. You can also see that we started slowing down the siphons, or shutting off a couple of the siphons to slow down the drawdown. We did a couple of other adjustments, and we kept bringing it down. We shut off another couple of siphons on the 8th, and then we got a little bit of rain. I'm sorry, no, not then. Rain came a little bit after. So we shut those off. We left 2 siphons on. We got down a little bit below the 48 inches. Then we came back up, and that's basically where we held by 12.5. So we were able to get a full drawdown for probably 2 weeks, maybe. And then after that 2 weeks, we started getting lots of rain. We only had a couple of siphons running. We started up a few more siphons, but the rain overtook it. And basically the lake is really at our full level, if you will, even today. All right. So that's the fate of the beaver. He's out of there now and living downstream on your property, not on ours. So evaluation comparison metrics. What are our long-term goals? Really, for the lake is to maintain this balanced nutrient level in the lake, particularly with E. coli and phosphorus. We want to reduce both of those that are coming in from the Malpas, and we have some data in the next couple of slides that are going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. We know it's coming in from the Malpas. We know it's coming in from the feeder brook. One at Island Road, which we call the Old Boat Cove. There's a lot of phosphorus and E. coli coming in there as well as we get this from street drains. We've talked with you about this over time, and that continues to be a problem. Weeds, we want to maintain a healthy balance of weeds. We'd like to eradicate the invasive weeds. Fanwort are the one that we have the most of today. It is not likely that is ever going to be eradicated, but we at least be able to, we need to be able to maintain it and keep up with it. And then finally, erosion control on all the islands. We have done a lot of work. We continue to do work. on the islands to keep them from eroding away. Over time, before I was here, some of the islands had literally eroded away. We have one that is on the brink of eroding away, and we keep trying to do work on that. And so watching these, we know enough at this point that we need to be doing some type of control on all the islands to be able to maintain them. All right. So treatment methods. This year in Little Hickory and, well, let me talk about Little Hickory first. We did an herbicide, algicide treatment to reduce the excessive weed growth August 19th. This really was late in the season, but we ended up being late because we were late in getting the order of conditions. I think we started later than we had thought. That took longer than we thought. So by the time we were actually able to be all done, have the order of conditions, be able to get Solitude here and get them in the water was August 19th. So we did it as soon as we could. That did good. I mean, they took a portion of the lake that had some pretty thick weeds, as you saw in some of the maps earlier, and we're able to treat that to reduce that weed growth. The other thing we did is a pack treatment. We've been doing the pack treatment 2 years before this, and we did the third one this year to reduce the algae growth in there. And that helped really well. I think 2 years before and this year with a low dose aluminum chloride really helped us bring back that lake. A few years ago, Little Hickory was we had a lot of problems with it, and this has really helped. Little Hickory is 5 acres, if you recall. So it's a small area. It doesn't have a lot of water that runs in or out of it. It is pretty stable, and it's not, at one time in its lifetime, it was a cove of the big lake, but roads between it and the big lake have basically stopped most of that from happening. In the spring, when the water is really high, we may get water running in or out of Little Hickory, but in general, it seeps out of it more than runs out of it. So anyways, the results of our work there this year, we did reduce the weeds, and we kept any toxic algae blooms. Water clarity remained really high. It is really surprising how clean that is, and I think a lot of that is because of the aeration methods that we are doing in that lake as well. In the main lake, the only area that we did any treatments, any chemical treatments was in Hemlock Cove. Hemlock Cove over the last couple of years has started to be a problem with algae. It has 2 stormwater drains that come into it, and it is really a slow flow. Water does always flow out of it, but it is really a slow flow out of that area. And so we did a pack treatment on it as well. And again, that was not until September 2nd. And this is the second year that we did it there, but we still had algae in that cove. It didn't bring it down. And it probably was because by September 2nd, the algae was, was pretty strong. And I think it resisted some of the work that we were doing to it. So this year we may take a different approach, and we'll talk about that towards the end. So these are the notes from Solitude on Little Hickory, the herbicide treatments. I know you've seen them. This basically is the information on when it was, what they used. So they used Diquat and Captan XDR, what the weather was, how much they applied, etc. So this is what we would typically give you anyways, even before the work is done. Okay. And for Little Hickory and Hemlock Cove, the pack treatment, again, polyaluminum chloride. The weather was cooler. This is how much they used. And, it was a low dose again, and the treatment method and how they did it. Okay. All right, fishing data. So one of the requirements is for fishing data as well. This actually I found to be quite interesting. So we have fishing tournaments on the year, every year. Sorry, there are 7 scheduled fishing tournaments for the residents every year, and there's a variety of people that show up. Some have been coming, every tournament every year for years and years and years. Others come for a tournament. Others come for a half a day. et cetera. But what I have here is basically a summary of all the data since 2018. So what I did is took a summary of the large fish that we have. I took a tournament average weight. I took the total tournament, the total fish, so tournaments, total fish from tournaments, sorry. I took the total fishing hours and then the average fish per hour. Okay, so we can see the average fish per hour. Yeah, it's kind of up and down. Really is not a huge statistic. I don't think is all that helpful. You can see that the total tournament fishing hours has gone down, which basically means we have less people fishing now than we did in 2018. You can see that the tournament fish also went down. With less people, the chances are that you're catching less fish. But the two things that are really interesting in my mind are the average weight and the total large fish for a year. So the total weight of the large fish were at 35.18. So the fish are bigger and the tournament average weights are bigger, even though we are catching less fish and we are fishing less hours. What that really tells you is the people that are still fishing are the ones that have been fishing every tournament, every year since 2018. They're just getting better at it. So, but anyways, that's kind of what our data is. And I think this is good because what it shows us is the fish aren't getting smaller or bigger. They're, yes, they're in general growing. And you have some years where you just some people catch big fish. Last year there's, once or twice we saw a 7-pound fish come out of here. So we're seeing that. Oops, sorry. I don't know how I keep jumping ahead here. I'm not sure how this is working for me. Let's see. Last thing, sunfish. So we do in the springtime, we see some, usually it's sunfish. That we'll see, in coves or whatever, when there's really heavy pollen. But other than that, there's certainly been no big fish kills that I'm aware of, even in the since we've been keeping this data. All right, outreach to residents. What do we do? So we have an office manager with regular office hours. So that is all posted so people can contact the office, or the office contacts them. We do resident email blasts when there's information about the lake, whether there's going to be a treatment on the lake, there's some information that needs to flow. We did a resident email blast earlier this week, asking people to come to the meeting last night. So we communicate. That's one of the ways we communicate. Board-sponsored communication committee. So we have a communications committee that's a subgroup of the board of directors. And they do things like the welcome committee to new residents. They do a Hickory Hills Happenings, which is a short newsletter, which is issued approximately monthly. We do pamphlets and handouts for whatever reason it might be. There's a handout that's going to go around for the meeting on Saturday, where we're inviting people to help them fill out their abatement forms. We have our newspaper, if you will, The Waves. It's a comprehensive quarterly newspaper, and that goes out to residents as well. So we and that just includes several pages of information. We do a yearly shareholders meeting that is required by our bylaws, but that is the third Saturday in September. We do residents meetings as needed. We have one coming up actually in February on topics of general concern for all residents. We have Facebook page. We have multiple Facebook pages actually. We have what I call a corporate Facebook page, where it really is a bulletin board pushing information out. And then we have what we use it's called Friends of Hickory Hills, and that is an interactive Facebook page for people to share information, etc. Our website has all of our policies, our forms, our letters. It has basically all the information a resident needs, whether it's a tree request or any of those types of things that we do as well. Those are all in there. We have formal classes that we have. So our divers are all they have to be certified to do the work on the lake. So we actually pay for them to go through those classes. We have boat launch certifications, so any boat that comes into the lake has gone through an inspection, and so we have training to be able to do that. And then we have security training for our security team, as they're working around on the lake. We have social events, neighborhoods and lake-wide, things like the polka run or things like that, or lake-wide events that we use to really generate money for special things that are needed on the lake. And then there are individuals that have their own things that are going on, or neighborhood parties. And then personal touch. We have several residents that go door to door. One particular one on Little Hickory is very good at this and just spends time with the residents. That happens over at the Woodlands as well. But there are residents that just go from door to door to share information with their neighbors. So. All right, stormwater. Let's talk about stormwater. So we formed a stormwater team in 2021 because we started realizing that we were being affected by water, coming into our lake. So we have a group of more than a dozen volunteers. We had them trained by ESS on sample collection procedures, how to do it. We have documentation, things like that for all of that. We chose initial test sites, and I showed you where a lot of those were. So I'll show you where a lot of those are. And then we did one cycle of testing completed in the fall of 2021. So what's required to do the testing? Why don't we do more? It actually comes down to this. You have to have 3 days of no rain, and then you have to have a lot of rain in a short period of time. And that's really what the requirement is. And as you know, in 2022, with it being as dry as it was, we had a lot of days of no rain, but we didn't have a lot of this. They were able to test 3 times. There were 3 storms in 2022. So they were able to do that, and I'll show you some of that. The other thing that made it a little bit more difficult is these nighttime storms that we had, or if it's in the middle of summer, people are traveling or out of town as well. So, but we were able to do 3 times. The team goals, really what they're after doing is finding phosphorus hotspots. They're testing at the lake inflows, and they're pointing to the flows of concern. They conduct further testings in problem areas to zero in on hotspots. And I'll show you in a minute, when they're looking at the Malpas, if we have a lot of phosphorus at the mouth of the Malpas, when it comes into the lake, they start going upstream. So build and maintain stormwater control structures. We have a few of these on the lake now. We probably need more. We built one, I believe it was the beginning of last year. We built the one off of Cove Road going into Little Hickory. It was what we call a double plunge pool. And then we work with the the town stormwater task force to correct stormwater problems that are coming in from the town roadways. And we talked about this the other day. One of the things we're at is we have gotten back to some of our testing has gotten us back to the roadways. And now we need to test on either side of the roadways to determine if indeed the phosphorus or E. coli, et cetera, is coming down the road and then dropping into these streams versus coming from the stream on the other side of the road. And then finally, communications with residents. We again have, through the happenings or the waves or our shareholders meeting, have done what I think is a pretty good job communicating with the residents on what really is stormwater and why does it matter. So here is 2022 stormwater phosphorus test results. So as you can see, there was a 6.9, we did it. So Malpas M2. Malpas M2 is right here, basically almost to the mouth of the lake. It just happens to be behind somebody's property, but that's and if you've ever spent any time out there in the woods, this is right where the old bridge where Gilchrist Street used to come down and go across and attach back to Island Road. So some of you may know from biking, whatever out there where that is, but that's where it is. So that's M2. So, and then the Island Road Boat Cove, so that's right here. This is our Island Road Beach. So OBL. And WW2 I'm sorry, WW10 is upstream, up the stream that comes from our Wildwood property. So let's talk about this one. So as you can see, upstream in the Wildwood property, the phosphorus level that was measured was 0.074. Still high, right? But compared to when it comes out into the lake, there is a significant increase in the phosphorus coming literally along this section right here. And there are probably 3 houses here on this side and maybe 2 on this side. But something is happening significantly between this, and this is the walking path. If you know Wildwoods, this is the walking path and the bridge. That's where that water was tested, between there and here. So this year, the idea is to zero in on that to try to figure out, okay, you know, is it a house here or a house here? What is it that's doing that in that area? Because it goes up significantly, you know, 300%, 330% or something like that. And then we went back to the Malpas on 920 and started going upstream from there. So we went M2, M3. If you know this area in the Malpas, this is where the stream splits in. This one comes from Marshall Pond, and this one comes all the way from Route 13. It comes from in 2 different ways, but this is the one that comes in off of Howard Street in the Lane property is where M6 is. All right. So on this particular day, because of the testers that they had, they tested M2, they tested M3, and they tested M4. So M2, M3, and M4. And again, yes, this is a little bit higher than this or this, but really it says phosphorus is just as bad up here as it is here. All right. And again, then on 10/14, again, another rain event. They tested it again and found pretty much the same results along these 3 areas. I'm sorry, they went up, did M2 as a reference, and then they went further upstream, did M5 and M6, and found that, again, not a huge difference. Yes, it's worse, but it turns out it was worse upstream than it was as it got closer to the lake. So the next portion of that is you go up a little bit further and you get to Holman Street and you measure it right on Holman Street. And that's what I talked about a few minutes ago, working with the town and measure it on both sides of Holman Street and find out, is it water phosphorus that's coming in from Holman Street, or is it coming further up into that Beaver area, or maybe all the way up at Marshall Pond? And the same with this one as well. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing. That's the strategy that we're taking. That's what ESS is recommending, that we continue to work our way upstream and figure out where the biggest, where the areas are that are adding the most to the lake. So the phosphorus test results, plant algae blooms start to become a risk for phosphorus at 0.02 milligrams per liter, which is why I kept mentioning that number earlier in the presentation. Plant algae blooms become frequent at 0.05 milligrams. So, and again, we have been seeing it. So this, when we're starting to get to these levels, becomes more and more of a problem. We're seeing water coming into the lake at 0.02. It makes us very uncomfortable. We need to try to figure out where that's coming from, and we'll continue to work upstream so if we can see if we can identify a source. Minor inflows regularly exceed 0.02, as I showed you, the small stream that comes in right next to the Island Road Beach. I think this is interesting that phosphorus concentrations in the Malpas Brook seem to be constant as we work our way upstream. So, you know, it's on conservation land, but we continue to see that water showing, you know, high levels of phosphorus. Where the minor inflows show significant decreases upstream from the developed areas. So if we go beyond, as I showed you in Wildwoods, there's a lot of woods up beyond where the last upstream from where the last tests were done, and that is actually in pretty good shape. So we know, given the flow rates and concentration, that the Mulpus Brook is a primary contributor of stormwater phosphorus to our lake. Because it delivers about 90% of the water that comes into the lake. Minor inflows have, concentrations, but there's less phosphorus load. There's smaller amounts. So the strategy in 2023 is to work further upstream of the Mulpus to identify the point sources. One of the things that we're real concerned about is this Pondview Commons that is up on Howard Street. I think, as we've mentioned in the past, that really is the headwater to the Mulpus Brook. The site was a former chicken farm, large chicken farm. And as we all know, all that chicken manure was not trucked away when they cleaned those barns. It was dumped somewhere on there. And then recently that area has been, the ground itself has been disturbed by work that's been up there. We're concerned as we go upstream that we're going to end up here finding the phosphorus levels being high, even up into this area. E. coli test results as well. So same sampling at the same time, mostly the same times. Stormwater samples were analyzed for E. coli. We started that in October. And we have Neshoba Analytical doing the work for us. And so this was disturbing, I guess, because site M2, M5, M6, these here again, 2, 5, 6, the old Boat Cove here, and LH9, which is Little Hickory, all have pretty high levels of E. coli coming in. You're going to see at the presentation at the end, I just did a measurement of the E. coli sitting where the water district water comes in a cove that's near the woodlands. It's 3. The number is 3. These are 2,420. I mean, these are huge. These concentration levels would immediately close any public beach. So there is a real problem with the E. coli floating down the river into our lake. Lab personnel advised us that these levels were high during 2022, so we weren't the only ones that saw that. But again, this in my mind is an issue that we all should be taking a look at. These numbers here as they're coming down the Mulpus. Let's talk about a good thing, erosion control. I mentioned earlier that we residents of the lake have been doing erosion control projects for quite a few years now. We typically use core logs. That is kind of our go-to, but we have used rocks in the past as well, which honestly work just as good or maybe even better. When we have people around the lake that are doing work to their homes or are digging, I know when the Hudsons were digging their foundation on Hemlock Road, we were able to get rocks from the dirt that had been dug out from their foundation. We picked them and placed them on some of the islands. So we use both rocks and core logs. Those are the two really go-tos that we use. And the corporate focus really is preserving the islands. I mean, I have rocks around my own shoreline, but that's kind of up to me. That's not a corporate activity. This is what we've been using. And we like to backfill them where we can. We try to backfill them where we can with just some vegetation or blueberries or some other scrub that'll survive the edge of the water. All right, I bet we're close to the end. I bet you thought I'd never be done. Plans for 2023. So fan wart control, we need to continue our work on fan wart. I showed you those 4 areas that are our main concerns, and at some point we're going to ask to do a herbicide treatment on those. As those plants begin to grow in the spring, when they're a foot high versus as high as they get, but when they're about a foot high and they're trying, that's a time when they're growing really fast. We're going to try to do or ask to do an herbicide treatment on those to try to kill those back. Now, we won't kill the roots and the first time, but what it will do is it will allow us to take those 4 areas and not have to spend as much time on those in the beginning of the season, so we can go around the rest of the lake and make sure the rest of the lake is being taken care of as well. And then at some point in time, we'll end up going back to those and picking some of that. So it's a different approach than what we've done in the past. In the past, we've tried to kill the roots. This particular year, what we're gonna do is try to be able to make sure that we have gone over the whole bottom of the lake and get as much as we can out of that by slowing the growth in these 4 areas. We'll continue to do hand pulling. That is pretty successful, and we talked about, pulling 23,000 plants last year. So certainly we're out there getting a lot of that done. And we may bring in the diver assisted suction harvester this year. We have not in the last couple of years, but also towards the end of last year, we started talking that this really would have been a better solution than trying to handpick all those 23,000 plants. Algae control. We've talked to Dominic about this from Solitude, and he's recommending we consider doing a copper sulfate treatment to the main lake, about half of the main lake. As you may or may not be aware, copper sulfate is about 10% of the cost of aluminum sulfate. So it is a little bit easier to do on the main portion of the lake. The other thing is copper sulfate works really well when you have a lot of phosphorus in the bottom layers of the lake. It's being held in the bottom, and the main lake really doesn't have that. In the muck, it doesn't hold a lot of phosphorus. It's basically sitting in the water column. So what will end up happening is the algae will suck up the phosphorus, and then the copper sulfate will help to wipe that out when we wipe off the algae as well. All right, but we'd like to leave open the opportunity to do aluminum sulfate if we get into the year and find out that one little hickory needs yet another dose. And again, that is typically a 3-year program, so we don't think it will. But again, we'll go with our experts as the year comes in, and we'll come back to LCC and ask if that's if we can do that at that time, if they start to recommend that. And the same with Hemlock Cove. If it makes sense to do it in Hemlock Cove, do it early in the year to help that cove, we may ask to do it then. We'll continue to do erosion control around the islands. That's an ongoing yearly work. Actually, in last fall, we didn't end up doing. Our goal for this particular season was to do it when the ice was in place. So we had hoped to have the lake being lower and the ice in place to be able to do all this erosion control around the island. Most of those things have kind of fallen apart. So we may not get erosion control done this year, or at least with core logs. We may end up having to do it in a different way. Stormwater, as I mentioned, Malpas is a problem upstream, so we've got to figure out where these sources are. But we'll also be doing some plunge pool development and maintenance, as well as rain gardens. We have a couple of common rain gardens that we have started in the common areas rain gardens. One is on Hemlock Beach. We have talked about doing one over at Brookview Beach. So there's an area there that we may start to do some more of the rain gardens. And that is all within our planned lake management plans. And finally, it would be remiss if I didn't talk about geese on the lake. I didn't go through it in the presentation. I think we all know that they're a problem in a lot of lakes. We're seeing them here as well. We have done an addling program over the last couple of years. I would say the first year was far more successful than the second. So we are going to continue that. And we have actually just today I filed into DEP, Mass Fish and Game, to be able to continue that addling program. Fencing, we have fencing along the dam. We did a test with this last year. We think it was successful, although the wire that we used was probably too thin. So we are aware of a different type of wire that we can use, but it's also doesn't make it, it's not real noticeable. You can kind of look right through it. And then we have talked about doing this around some of the islands. So islands where it's not really big enough for people. We don't have much people, but when they're not big enough for people, they tend to be big enough for geese. So we would like to fence some of those off as well. All of this is really just to make the lake less attractive. Okay, so questions. I would certainly entertain questions from you, and I have a question for you. And my question would be, how quickly can can LCC respond to the rising algae counts? As you're aware, when we have algae rising in an area, growing in an area, it tends to be moving pretty fast, and there are limits on when we can treat it. So it has to be over, I think it's 20,000, the count is over 20,000, but less than 70,000. How fast does, and I'm new to working with you guys on this, so how fast can LCC respond to that and, help us jump in and attack the algae problems?
I believe in the past, we've empowered our agent to do an emergency cert, but I'm not 100% positive of that. Does anyone have a better handle on that than me?
I believe that's the case as well. And if that works this year, then that would probably be fine. Because I know in the past, it's always been pretty quick.
Mary Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I thought I recalled in the fall that we established that we could allow our agent to be notified as long as the commission was kept informed of the plan and was in agreement with the plan, that the Lake Association would be able to notify the agent and get permission, immediate permission to proceed, as long as it was consistent with the plan, per my memory.
From my memory also, but I believe we could probably go back and look at the order of conditions and see what it says. Or if it's not in there, go back and look at the minutes and see what they say, because I know we did discuss that.
Okay, I mean, we don't need to take up time now. But anyways, that's I assume at some point in time, and we'll be working with Anna on on some of these things anyways. So I don't see this being a big
Are
problem.
there any comments or questions from members of the commission on this presentation? Seeing none, I have a couple of comments. I applaud all the efforts of the divers. And I think it's extraordinary that this lake has, that your lake, has divers that go down and look at the bottom of the lake. I think it puts you so far ahead of the game, of other lakes. I don't think there's another lake around that has a diver program like you do, with those little scooters that you purchased. I applaud you on your phosphorus monitoring and going up the brooks to try to figure out where it's coming from. I think that's really interesting and a good and insightful. A little surprised to see you talk about bringing about the diver assisted suction harvesting, but I leave that to the lake. And those are just my comments. If there are no other comments.
And I do have one more slide that had been asked for the last time I was on public comment.
Okay,
And
let's see it.
I'll just share that. So this is the data on the Hickory Hills well. So as you recall, I came and talked to you and said that we had begun to do some testing. So I tested where the outfall of where the well, I don't know if you folks have gone down there yet or not, but the area where the well will dump into the swampy area and then will overflow into the lake. So right into the lake, at that point, I did some testing. And I tested iron, I tested manganese, I tested dissolved phosphorus, total phosphorus, E. coli, and then I tested PFAS. The PFAS test results are not back yet. They take 3 to 5 weeks. But the iron, manganese, phosphorus are here. You can see them. So iron 0.104, manganese 0.036, dissolved phosphorus 0.02, total phosphorus 0.02, and E. coli 3. I mentioned this number as we were going through the presentation. So this is what we see in that area versus what we had seen upstream after a storm, which was 2000 or something. But of particular note is the well. So the Lunenburg Water District well the test results they had in the information that they have shared with people and in their time bond, the time that they shared with time bond, shows the iron in the well to be 0.48. The manganese in the well to be 0.43. So differences basically in percentage, 362% higher than the lake water and over 1,000% higher than the lake water in the manganese. And this, as I mentioned to you in the public comment, is one of our concerns, that we're basically taking much what I would call dirtier water, and Lunenburg Water Districts, has said, look, we've always done it this way. Maybe you have, but you're taking much dirtier water and putting it into the lake. And that was one of my reasons for asking for some ability to let that water settle out and maybe settle out some of the iron and manganese before it just gets poured into the lake. And again, when I have the PFAS information, I will bring that to the commission, but this is what I had for now.
Thank you, John. I think this is probably more appropriate when the water district applies for their RDA.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. It just said it was asked for. I think Richard asked for this, and I told him I would present it tonight.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Then with that, I think we'll move on. The next public hearing was originally advertised for night was canceled. Paul Cavicchio for converting existing lots for plantings. That entire application has been withdrawn. And so you'll not ever see that hearing again because they're no longer considering that development. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws. A public meeting on a request for determination of applicability by Jessica and Stephen Walker for trees that were removed from the front yard in the area landscape at 336 Arbor Street. I think I saw them here. Aha, I see.
Hi.
Hi. And so, are you representing yourself tonight? You're speaking for yourself?
Yes, I am.
All right. Would you like Anna to share the screen? Would you like to share the screen? Do you have anything to present tonight or talk about, or?
I was just gonna, honestly, we've never been to one of these. I was just gonna talk about what happened and give a little bit of background information. Is that okay?
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. My husband probably will pop into, he's putting the kids to bed, so he might pop in the screen at some point, but Jesse and Steve Walker, 336 Arbor Street. We had some work done early last spring on the front yard of our house. If you haven't seen the property, it is a little bit off the ways of the street and there is lots of woods surrounding us. So we've got wetlands that are in between our front yard and the street. There were several trees in our front yard that were not of good health, and we had them taken down in the early spring last year. They had some large limbs. I mean, we know Lunenburg, there's lots of storms, whether it be wind, rain, snow, well, not this year, but there were large limbs that were hanging and kept falling. And, we would get worried when the kids were in the front yard. There was one along the wood line that actually the entire limb fell and cracked the arbor of our in the pool area and broke it. So the trees were a concern for us. One of the bigger concerns that we had was that the trees were blocking so much sunlight that we were getting mold on the foundation of our house. We had to replace one of our front doors and we had to replace our decking because it was obtaining so much moisture because there just was no sunlight to dry everything out. So we had some trees removed. We had the stumps grinded down. Once that happened, we had some craters in our yard and the yard is a little bit of a slope that goes down. So the top part of the yard, we didn't really touch at all. And the bottom part, once we had the craters from the trees, we had some loam that was brought in just to cover that up. And then we just hydro seeded once it was, the trees were taken out. Just to go off that a little bit, this was 100% due to our negligence. We weren't aware of the 100-foot buffer at the time. after all the work was done, we received something in the mail and we immediately emailed the address that was given to us. And we didn't hear back. We emailed a couple times and now we know that the person who emailed us then left the position and wasn't there. So we waited because we emailed a few times. Then we heard back again early this fall to have a restoration plan. We emailed again and hadn't heard back, but then someone got back to us that Anna would be starting in a couple months. And then ever since Anna's been there, it's been great. And we've been working together to try to figure out what to do. So Anna came out and we showed her around. And I did mention to her that unbeknownst to us, before all of this happened, I wanted to plant high bush blueberry bushes along the wood line, and that we were totally amendable to planting any, New England aster, rhododendrons, anything that would be wetlands safe along that to help out. We're really just here. We're sorry, obviously, to like kind of apologize because we didn't go about it the right way. And we were, it was unbeknownst to us the steps to take, but also just to ask you what we can do to sort of like make it right.
Thank you. Anna, how far were these trees from the edge of the wetlands that were taken down?
I would say they're definitely kind of like bordering, it's definitely between the 50 and 100, but even bordering like the 100 foot.
They're between 50 and 100?
Yeah, so
So we don't have a remediation, we don't have a requirement that people replace trees between 50 and 100.
mhm. Yeah, I was just saying, like, because I know they were like talking about possibly planting, and I like completely encourage like along the edge here. I can show pictures because Mary shared in like the a certain drive some pictures that we took on the day of the area. I'm on share screen. Let's see, is this the right one? Might be a little bit small. I don't know if I can enlarge it anymore, but kind of like along this edge here, just planting, because right back here is the wetland.
Okay,
So it's pretty much immediately like starts being like upland here, like a lot of pines and like red oaks. And you can see here is a stump of a tree, but like along this edge and like, let's see if I can go to the next picture.
Just quick, sorry to interrupt you, Anna. That tree was the one I was talking about where a branch fell and cracked into the pool area.
Mhm.
All the other trees, no other trees that were taken down was like in that woods line. The rest of them were closer to the house.
Yeah, okay. And then you can see along here, it's kind of like an immediate, like, this is where their lawn was anyway, and obviously it's gonna be seeded and loomed and everything. It's like, this is all definitely like upland, and then further closer back here is where an obvious wetland is. But I definitely even recommended that they could plant, like they were going to before, like any native species, just to even help with like the erosion control, because it is a little bit of a slope right along here. But yeah, you can see like the wetlands back here. And then
thank you.
laurel and like some pines and oaks here that are definitely like upland.
I'm gonna call on Mary Wilson, see what she has to say.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna call on Richard Tremblay and see what he has to say. Mary first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anna, I wondered if you could zoom in on this, because the one thing that I had a question about is in the center of this photo, there's some standing water in there, and it is kind of a low kind of V shape. So have we established that that is not a wetland where that standing water is?
It's very hard to tell just because it could be possibly overflow and just where it's flooding, because as I'm seeing, like there's not a whole lot of indicators like plant species wise that say that this is a wetland. It could be just completely soil, but like from what I've seen and like what I've looked on the software, like online, this could be just completely like overflow over time. It could possibly turn into a wetland, but from what I'm seeing, like species surrounding, it's not like definite like wetland. It's mostly strictly back here in the back.
And did you have an opportunity to like test the soil or anything like that? Because I know it's hard to tell in the winter time.
I am not capable of that.
Okay, and that was the question that I had, because I'm aware of the DEP map that shows the wetland where you can kind of see the larger open area, but we all know that that's just, a snapshot in time, and that
Yeah.
the wetlands change over time. So the DEP map's a good reference, but it's not the definitive source of
Yeah.
truth. The definitive source of truth is out in the field.
Yeah, to my knowledge, because I'm not 100% on soil testing, but for a species, it's mostly, this is indicating mostly uplands. And again, like this, as it fills over time, because the wetland can grow itself as it flows more, it could turn more wetland, but current species, current plant species is mostly uplands. And that is to my knowledge. If it raises concerns to the commission, it could be delineated to be more certain. But just to my knowledge, these are just mostly upland species.
Any other questions, Mary, or comments?
None for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Richard Tremblay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. I'd like to know how many trees were cut down. And when the loom was brought in, did we change the grading at all of the yard with that loom?
We had 5 trees. We had 5 trees taken down altogether. And then, sorry, what did you just say?
About 18 inches of loom.
He said it was about 18 inches of loom in that spot, and then none up top at all, or it was just pretty much actually where the camera is right now.
So that area was raised approximately 18 inches with the loom?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking over here because I'm asking my husband. I torn off the screen.
Sorry, I just put the kids to bed. I'm coming in if you need.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion for a negative determination on this request for determination of applicability. The Walker's negative determination would mean that you haven't significantly impacted the wetlands and everything's copacetic. Is anyone willing to make a motion?
So moved.
Katie, do we have a second? Okay, I'm gonna second it. Is there any further discussion? Roll call. Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you very much. And Anna,
Yes.
I suggest you look in some catalogs and buy yourself one of those soil cores. And also Matt had this reference book, that you could take a soil core and then compare it to compare the soil core to the reference book to see whether or not the soil is hydric or not. And I
Mhm.
suggest that you go out and look into buying yourself those.
Absolutely. I'll talk with Matt as well. I'm sure he has tons of insight.
Okay, thank you, but I suggest you do that. There's no
Yeah.
time like the present to start to look, to be able to sample soils and learn about them.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, good night. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Gerald Quill for a replacement of an existing sewer line at 1 Crocker Avenue, Lot 2, DEP number 2081285. Anna, what comments, if any, did the DEP have on this? Do you know?
Try and access my, sorry, because I can't really get to my screen.
I can do it if you don't have it, or we could ask, I bet you it's gonna be Bill Hannigan doing this.
It is, but I didn't get the file number Chris did.
Well, I can look it up. I got the site bookmarked. Where's NOI? Here it is. And this is 1 Crocker Avenue, and the details say comments. None. No comments.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bill.
All right, for the record, Bill Hannigan with Hannigan Engineering. We're here for a notice of intent that was filed on behalf of Jared and Mallory Quill. They're building a house in Lunenburg. It's actually off of Wilder Road in Leominster, but it crosses the town line. So the house is actually technically in Lunenburg. Is my screen up? Can everyone see that?
Nope. Wait, maybe they can and I can't. Yes,
I
we
can see it.
Yep, yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen.
All right, so I'm gonna zoom in to the area that we're talking about. So this is 1 Crocker Ave here, and this is the new house that they're building outside the buffer zone, as you can see. And there was an existing sewer line that ran through this area here and connected to this manhole. The original intent was to have a sewer line go around and put a manhole here and then just connect with the house right here and leave this in place. When the city of Leominster was inspecting it, we ended up cameraing the line, and the line is it's old, it's full of roots, so they asked us to replace it. So the purpose of the notice of intent is to be able to go in, surround this area here with erosion control, remove the old pipe, install a new pipe, bring everything back to grade, loam and seed, and that would be the extent of the work to be done. I believe there was a site walk done over the weekend. And I don't believe that there were any concerns, but I'll be happy to address any if they're okay.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mary Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So most of that, I did have the privilege of walking there on Saturday, and it's a lovely, lovely lot. And it looks like it's going to be a really cool house. Do you expect that there's not a lot of trees? There's like an old apple tree somewhere around where that detail is, provide landscaping retaining wall, just where the note is on there.
Right about in here.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I believe that was discussed, and Chris did tell me that they thought that they might have to do some branch trimming in this area here to get the equipment in to be able to build this, but I don't think the intention is to cut the tree down on
Okay.
the property.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's an apple tree, and that one actually is far away. Down near the manhole, though, it didn't seem to, from my eye, that there would need to be. Didn't seem like the trees were close. They're all kind of growing
Yep.
right at the water's edge.
Right.
Is the expectation that those trees along the water's edge would be left untouched?
Correct.
Okay, no more questions for me.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If there are no other questions, I would expect to hear a motion to approve this NOI with a standard order of conditions, unless Mary wants to put in some caveat about trees. But I do think that the erosion control shows or we can put in something about the erosion control as a limit of work.
Right. That's expected.
And I believe that's part of our standard order of conditions.
correct.
So I'm looking for a motion for a standard order of conditions approval.
So moved.
Second,
Uh, All right, motion and motion by Mary, second by Rich. Roll call, Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
aye.
and I for myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Have fun.
Oh, this is great fun.
Oh, yeah.
Continue public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection Municipal Bylaws. A public hearing on a notice of intent by Nancy Malati for the replacement of one lakefront retaining wall and two non-lakefront retaining walls, the removal of an existing deck, and a 386 square foot addition to a single-family residential structure at 406 Sunset Lane. And we have a DEP number, and they did make some comments, which I am very confident that Mr. Roy has addressed before now. So Greg, why don't you tell us what you've done here?
Thanks, everybody. Greg Roy, Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group. Appreciate your time this evening. I'm representing the applicant, Nancy Malady. We issued a letter dated January 12th, 2023, which I'll summarize in a minute, which is intended to summarize the changes we made to the plan pursuant to the comments we received from your commission last at the opening public hearing, as well as the three comments that we received from DEP. So I'll go over those in a second. We also issued a plan dated the same, actually dated January 10th with the revised plan. So I'm going to go over the changes that we made in response to your commission and also to the DEP comments. The first question by the commission was to ask, will the construction of the lake wall be from above or below the wall? So will it be from the lake side or the upgrade inside of the lake? Actually, at the time of the hearing, Brett Ramsden, who's going to be constructing the wall, was on the call and confirmed that that will be done from the uphill side of the wall. So we won't have to have equipment on the lake side of the wall. A little bit more on that later on. There was a request to add the mitigating tree plantings that we're going to propose in mitigation for the trees that we're removing. So we have updated the plan to show a couple of additional trees. There's a total of 6 trees that will be removed. And we've tried to clarify by boxing out, so you can see here, again, I'm having trouble finding my highlighter, but you can see here, we've boxed out the trees that are to be removed on the plan. So there's a total of 6, 3 on the westerly side and 3 on the easterly side, excuse me. 2 of them are there's one that's dead, and there's one that is in pretty poor health. So we are proposing to add a total of 4 trees to mitigate the loss of the healthy trees that we will be removing. We're proposing 1 red maple, 2 white oaks, and 1 magnolia tree. And I'll go over right now. It seems appropriate to tell you where we're proposing those. On the easterly side of the site, we're removing 3 trees, and we're proposing to place one of the trees right in that area after we're done with the construction. So we'll replace the loss of canopy immediately in that area. On the easterly side of the site, I'm having trouble tonight with my directions. We're proposing to replace a proposed tree in this area here, which again is in close proximity to the pine that is significantly damaged, or it has a lot of cracks in its structure. So we're proposing to put one in close proximity to that location. And then the oak tree and another pine tree in this area. The oak tree that exists is leaning towards the lake, so we're actually proposing to put a new oak tree right in that location, actually on the lower level. Our intention there would be to replace, again, the loss of canopy and shade that exists from that tree that will be removed. So we would be attempting to duplicate the shade characteristics on the lake by replacing that tree in this location here. And then the applicant would really like a magnolia tree on the property, which would provide some visual interest as well as wildlife significance. They'd like to place that out on the point if possible. So we are proposing that magnolia tree out here on the point. And again, that would be a total of 4 replacement plantings on the site to mitigate the loss of the 4 healthy trees that are proposed to be removed. The third thing we did, the commission asked that we update the plan notes to list the proposed walls in stone. So we updated the plan to clarify the materials that we're proposing for the wall replacement. We are, again, just to remind the board, we're proposing to replace the railroad tie retaining walls with a natural stone retaining wall. So a significant improvement. There was a inconsistency on the plan where we had one or two carryover notes where we were proposing a concrete block wall. We've clarified that now in the revised plan. The fourth comment was, could a dry well be added to the plan to infiltrate the roof runoff from the proposed addition roof? We have added that to the plan. We've sized a roof infiltration Cultec style chamber. It's the rectangular feature here that I'm attempting to highlight on the plan. I hope you can all see that.
Yep.
You see here where it says proposed roof leader. That's where we would connect the roof gutter system down into that drywall system. So that's our approach to that. Number 5, can the construction sequence be updated and expanded to reference a proposed phasing of the wall construction restoration details? We have expanded the construction sequence after speaking directly with Brett Ramsden on the site. The commission asked a very valid question, which was, will the wall be constructed in one step, or will we be doing it in sections? And actually, Brett is intending on doing it in sections. So he intends to start on the westerly side of the property. So he would come in the westerly side here. He would start out here at the point closest to the well here, and he would work his way back along the western side, doing it in approximately 50-foot sections at a time. So he would remove 50 feet and then replace 50 feet, and then he'd continue until he was completed. Once the western side is done, he'll come back in the easterly side. He'll start again where he started at the first phase, and he'll work his way back out along the easterly side of the wall, again in 50-foot sort of manageable chunks at a time. So we have memorialized that in the construction sequence to try to take out any ambiguity that existed with the initial set of plans. Another comment 6, I guess, was will the existing docks be replaced? And as we discussed, the U-shaped dock on the westerly side is in good condition. We intend to keep that and use that existing dock in the same location. On the easterly side, there's a cantilever dock that exists today that is in rather poor condition. We do intend to replace that and modify that, bring that up into modern day standards. We've updated the plans. We've actually added a second sheet to the plan set. Let me just turn here. We've added a detail that would replace the existing cantilever dock with a modern. We're going to actually put a galvanized steel some galvanized steel in there in place of the railroad tie cantilever system that exists today. And then the dock would be framed in the exact same footprint as it is today, framed on the top of that. So we're going to rip out all the railroad ties basically, and we're going to replace the cantilever structural members with a galvanized steel I-beam, which will be placed back into the slope and anchored with some concrete anchors. And then the frame deck will be placed on top of that. And we put that in the same horizontal position and the same vertical position. So there's no impacts to the lake as compared to the existing condition. Another question, the last question by the commission that we had noted was will the root balls from the existing trees being removed, be left intact? We took a look at this in closer detail. There's really no way that we can keep those root balls, given the other work that's proposed in close proximity to the foundations and needing to preserve access into the foundation for excavation purposes. What we have done, as we mentioned in the meeting, is we've added in the initial meeting, we've added some specifications to the plans calling for erosion control blanket as we pull those root balls out and we restore those areas. We've added specifications to the plan requiring that erosion control matting be placed so that there's no concerns for erosion. Knowing that we'll have to add some fill in those areas, there'll be some unconsolidated soils for a little while until the vegetation is established. So we have added that to the plan. That brings us to the DEP comments. There were 3 comments. The first comment, each category 1 activity requires its own fee, i.e. retaining walls, site work. In addition, are separate activities the commission may want to consider an additional fee. So we gave 2 fees for this. We calculated the linear footage of revetment per category 5, which was something like north of $1,500. And then we also added in a category 1 fee for the addition. So I can't see how we could calculate that any other way. We were intended to give a conservative fee. So I think we are covered relative to the fees. Of course, the town got their share and the state got their share for the formula, but I think we are covered on the fees. Section 2, the commission may want to also consider requiring a vegetated buffer consisting of native plantings of various strata between the limit of work and the edge of bank. I'm paraphrasing here. Where a buffer zone has already been developed, the issuing authority may consider the extent of existing development in its review, and where prior development is extensive, may consider measures such as the restoration of natural vegetation adjacent to a resource area to protect the interests of the act. So the property is, of course, developed from shoreline to shoreline with a lake wall that is a retaining wall, a railroad tie retaining wall, and then lawn to another terraced retaining wall area. We are proposing mitigated plantings to mitigate the loss of the trees that would be required to be removed. And we trust that that will satisfy the commission. We're not proposing any naturalized areas. The areas exist today as improved lawn. So we're not creating any new, we're not taking back any areas that are currently undisturbed. So we're not proposing any work in any sort of natural areas. So I think that the plantings that were shown on the plan are certainly in the spirit of what your bylaw requires, and we're not asking for any further encroachments into areas that have otherwise been not, we're working in areas that are completely developed and completely disturbed areas. So there's no new disturbance to any resource areas.
What was the third comment, Greg?
Third comment, If Lake Shirley is a great pond or a pond greater than 10 acres, a chapter 91 license may be required for the retaining wall and existing docks if one does not already exist. So as has been customary in the past, we had a project with your commission on Lake Whalum for a dock that we were proposing. Your commission has simply conditioned the order conditions that a chapter 91 license would be required. The applicant is aware of this issue and will certainly obtain all chapter 91 licenses prior to commencing work.
I believe if you look in the DEP's list of great ponds, it does not show Lake Shirley to be a great, is not on the official list of great ponds.
Which is terrific. Because I was looking for
that-
that. Can you send me that? Because I was looking for that and I couldn't find it.
That's on the one hand. On the other hand, if you talk to Brandon Kibbe, he'll tell you if you go back to 1800 or something like that and look at some map, you know, it was larger than the area that would qualify it for a great pond. But I do distinctly recall that if you went and looked at the great pond list, that Lake Shirley was not on it. But I am not an authoritative source,
So perhaps you just.
but we've never, to my knowledge, no one on Lake Shirley gets that permit right now.
Not that I know of, and I've done quite a bit of work on the lake, so this would be a dramatic diversion from what has historically been done. So perhaps you don't want to even bother with it, but if the commission was so inclined, you could put
Thank you, Greg. Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? Mary Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Greg, for reviewing that so thoroughly with us. I seem to recall that within the 30-foot zone, we had a schedule of replacement that was basically 2 for 1, particularly for the dimension, the diameter of trees that are being removed. And it doesn't look like the drawing shows that. It seems to show 1 for 1. So I would recommend that we do 2 for 1 and be consistent with the schedule of replacement.
I seem to recall at the last meeting, Rich had some discussion about that there were trees being left, existing trees being left, but I could be totally mistaken. And I've not been there and you have, Mary. And maybe the applicant might want to comment on that, but Mary is absolutely right. Typically, it's 2 for 1. And right now you're well short of that.
Yeah, I can comment on that. We are leaving a lot of trees on the site. I mean, there's quite a few trees that we're not removing, even in spite of the fact that they're pretty close to the existing structure. I don't think the applicant is opposed to putting additional plantings in there, but it does come down to a practicality.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of trees on there, and I guess mature trees are mature trees, but we don't want to put trees in that aren't going to do well. So again, let's see if I can zoom out here. This entire, most of the time we submit plans to your board at 20 scale. This plan's at 10 scale. So, you're talking about, it's probably only 50 feet across this peninsula. So it's a pretty small area. There's a lot of trees on here. We have, you can see a 14-inch pine, 16-inch pine, 20-inch maple, 18-inch pine. All these trees are going to remain. 8-inch pine, 24-inch pine, 10-inch pine. It's only when you get over here, there's 3 trees in here, they're going to be removed. There's a 10-inch pine that's staying. There's another 20-inch pine that's staying. And then out here, we have 18-inch maple, 22-inch pine, 14-inch pine, 20-inch oak, 6-inch maple, which is a quad, 12-inch pine here. All those are staying. So you know, it's a matter of how many trees can we pound in here that are gonna do well. I guess if there's any, if the commission would consider perhaps instead of additional trees, maybe we could put some shrubs in, some lower shrubs that would, you know, provide some habitat value, but might do a little bit better, and not sort of crowd the plate. You know, perhaps that's a suggestion that I'd like to make.
Mary, what do you think of that suggestion? And then,
Yeah, I would definitely consider that. There's on that upper tier, there definitely are a lot of trees. On the lower tier, they're not. So, but still, you know, trying to kind of be considerate of the circumstances of the actual site, but then also, you know, feel an obligation to follow the guideline that's set forth for the Conservation Commission as well.
So I think the applicants would be amenable to accepting a condition that would either require 3 additional trees. You know, again, we'd rather not replace the dead ones, I guess. So if we could, excuse me, 4 additional trees to go to a 2-to-1 ratio, or if the commission would be amenable to perhaps placing 8 shrubs in place of, you know, instead of doing 4 additional trees, we do 8 shrubs, native shrubs, something maybe in the rhododendron family, or something that does well on a slope type, you know, edge of lake type environment. You know, perhaps that would be something that the commission could condition if you so inclined.
thank you, Greg. Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to comment with Greg's last comments there. I very much am strongly in favor of the trees that are getting taken down to be replaced. There are damaged trees there, but they are still providing canopy cover, and so are of value, and I believe should be replaced. And I do believe that, you know, as for the, you know, 2-for-1, I'd be okay having the additional replacements be bushes, but I don't want to see any of the proposed trees on the drawing that are going to be replaced. I don't want to see that number drawn down. That's my opinion as one voice on the commission.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else want have any comments? Mike LaRouche.
Yes, I want to concur with Mary Wilson. Since I was unable to do a site walk on this property, you know, looking at the plan, I sort of agree with Mary that I would like to see the trees replaced as proposed, along with some shrubbery as Mary has suggested. I think that's a good compromise for this project, and hopefully the applicants will agree.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? This is a notice. Any comments or questions from members of the public?
We would just say, yeah, we would agree to adding the shrubs as well, in addition to the replacement trees.
Thank you, thank you. If there are no further comments, I'm looking for a motion to approve this notice of intent with a standard order of conditions, with the condition that there would be 8 additional shrubs placed in the location to be worked out with our conservation administrator.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Roll call. Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
aye for myself.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Greg, can you stick around for just a minute? I'm gonna move something around on the agenda here.
Yeah, I'm actually on for an enforcement order too, so.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'll be here a
Oh.
while. So
Well,
don't
I'd
feel
like
like
to
you
go
have,
straight to an update on the grant application proposals. And I'm gonna give the floor to Mary Wilson.
All righty. Can I share?
You certainly can if we get
Sorry.
Greg to stop.
sorry about that.
That's quite all right.
Greg is always showboating, man.
Sorry about that.
Actually, seriously, Greg's been a big help to me and Bob in trying to move these grants along and be ready on time, which has meant a little bit of scrambling for all of us, Greg included, and I appreciate that. For the benefit of the commissioners, I won't dwell a lot on this, but I just wanted to kind of go through the scope of work that we were kind of proposing. Maybe let's just start down here. We were proposing to add a parking area here at the Table Rock Conservation Area. We are also proposing to add a parking area here at the Reno Conservation Area. You know, some of our justifications that are in the grant, because you get brownie points if you are tying into or creating access points for regional trails. So I'm trying to, tell that story, right? With Reno here and Table Rock here, we have existing trails that in our dreamscape would get us to regional trails with very short order, most of which I think the conservation commissioners are well aware of. One of the things that I had pointed out to Bob is that here in the Reno, the lower end of this property is only 300 feet away from an existed public access. And then here at Hannaford's, there's a Lunenburg crossing MART stop, both of which also, as a futurescape, would get us a lot of bonus points in what we're trying to accomplish with these parking areas. I do have photos here of the Reno Conservation Area that show the crowded, and unimproved kind of roadside where we want to put the proposed parking here, which would also be the Reno trailhead. And then I show the road from the other direction that shows, again, there's no safe place to park. And of course, our interest is to allow members of the public to have safe access into our trail system. So off-road parking is what we had asked for our engineering consultant to provide us some quotes on. I have similar photos of Table Rock that show the area where we would like to put parking, and show the roadside here so that, it's just really clear there's no safe way to, and this is about 350 feet between the existing parking. You have to cross Northfield Road to get to the trailhead. And of course, for those of us that have walked up that area, walking up that access road, Old Stagecoach Road is not very appealing and is not a showcase of that lovely conservation land. And this is just a close-up of the parking area, proposed parking area. The strength of this is that we would have off-road parking, eliminating unsafe pedestrian conditions. They wouldn't be required to cross a busy road. It would allow space for off-road car turnaround to eliminate the need to back into traffic, which is what we have to do with the current pullout. It would be under the direct control of Lunenburg Conservation Commission. And we all know that we have a very amicable relationship with Parks and Recreation. But their priorities are not always our priorities. And developing Northfield Road Park is not right now their top priority. And then it would also provide us enough area to have designated handicapped accessible parking in this area, which I also think would be really, really cool. Where is my Cowdrey one? Cowdrey, we're doing something sort of similar in the Cowdrey Harold Harley Wildlife Area. Of course, this is the Cowdrey map. This is the area that's the Harold Harley Wildlife Area. And you can see we also have interconnected trails from the Cowdrey into the regional trail system at Small Town Forest. One of the things that Bob and I went out and did one lovely Sunday morning is went out and walked the opposite side of this area, and there is an existing trail right there, and even an existing looks like a historical cart path, right? That needs a little bit of maintenance, but there's the potential even to connect this isolated Harold Harley trail system into our existing trail system, and therefore have a regional connection, which is also a strong suit. You know, and this is just showing the regional trails. I think most people are familiar with that. The problem with the Harold Harley, there are a lot of problems with the Harold Harley Conservation Area right now. One of them is parking. Where do you park? These houses are right adjacent to the parking access, right? So you can go up here and park, but first off, you even have to know that the area is there. You can't really see even the trailhead from the side of the road. And the access road floods. The day we were out there with Greg, our engineering consultant, the ice was solid enough that we were all able to safely walk across it. Bob was the brave one. He went first. I went
Bob had
last.
on 18-inch boots though.
You did, but you still went first, right? And Greg went second, and I took up the caboose position because I didn't want to get wet. But this for the most part, after you get past the first 100 feet, the whole rest of the road is flooded. There's a lot of beaver activity out there, which is cool. And actually, the day I went out there and took photos of this, you know, a barred owl was staring at me from about 15 feet away, which was also very cool. But if you are able to get access to there, the Lunenburg Snow Riders have built a lovely handicapped accessible wildlife viewing platform. You can see it here from across the way. It has a handicapped wheelchair ramp and it's absolutely lovely. And we would like to get our families that have need of this type of access to be able to get out there again. So the scope of work here is to raise the access road so that put in culverts and whatnot, so that we would be able to have year-round access to these lovely views, right? And then also as a secondary project to look at adding a footbridge across. It looks like there is an existing historical dam here. Add a footbridge across here to provide traffic from the rest of the Cowdrey main area back over into this wildlife viewing area, and therefore have a interconnected trail system. So that's the plan. And I guess I should say too that adjacent to this area, we would actually have handicapped parking, 1 or 2 spots down here that are close to the platform, and then at the trailhead itself have regular 1 or 2 spots, regular parallel parking here, so that people actually know where to park to gain access to this area. So as I said, Greg did turn around some numbers for us for this work. And we kind of got our wires crossed on the bridge assessment to connect the existing trails. He's going to get me some firm numbers on that. He did at least confirm these not to exceed numbers for us. And so with each of the quotes, Table Rock parking, there was planning, no construction. There was a planning with construction. And I just, for my own purposes, figured out the delta on that. Same for Reno, planning with construction and without construction. For the primary project in the Harold Harley area, which is the parking and access road, the numbers there with and without construction. And then the one that Greg's going to follow up with me on, that's a do not exceed number, is the bridge assessment to connect the existing trails. Again, planning and, with and without construction. And Greg, I just used the same offset that you'd use for the rest of them on the with construction piece of it. Again, well, I guess, yeah, I'll just go through the rest of the numbers and then open up the floor for questions and comment. The proposal here is to submit these numbers for Mass Trails budget support at the end of the month. The total grant right now stands at 74,595. The requester would be expected to provide 20% matching support. And, per our previous conversations, right now we've been kind of flashing that as coming out of our general fund with the expectation that should we get awarded this grant, that Mass Trails would provide us funding for a little less than $60,000 there. Questions or comments?
I would suggest that we pass a motion tonight supporting this grant and pledging that the commission will furnish up to $20,000 from our Timber Rights Fund in as our local match for this grant.
So moved.
Oh, boy, that was quick. Do we have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Greg, what's your enforcement issue you're here for? Since you're the only one left.
Oh, okay. I am here to represent 105 Sunset Beers.
Oh, what have you got to tell us?
Yeah, boy, I didn't think it was gonna happen that fast. I don't have it queued up. I'm covering for
Well, if you want to get your thoughts together, Greg, I could also update the Conservation Commission on the Lunenburg Snow Riders grant that was awarded.
Sure.
Okay.
do that.
And before you do that, Mary, Greg, I don't know if you were there at the beginning of the meeting. I participated today in a webinar offered by Mass Open Space, part of the Mass Open Space Conference on beaver flow devices.
Yeah,
And I think we probably could use some of those designs out there on that access, even before the grant, on that access to the to the handicap viewing platform. So
absolutely. I'd love to see that if there's some.
and I'm gonna send, I will send it off to you. I'm also gonna send it off to Bill Bernard, because he talked about how people do these ineffective things at culverts that I know we do at
Marshall.
at Flat Hill.
In Marshall Pond. we
And
had
probably at Marshall Park too,
Yeah.
so where you just make the fence a certain shape and all this other stuff. So they haven't posted a recording of the webinar yet, but when they do, and they put the slides up, I will send it along.
Great.
I'm gonna
Thank
turn
you.
the floor over now to Mary so she can give us an update on the Snow Riders grant.
And I will share again. Not that, that's flashback. And for this, I think I'm just going to run through. I've still got to do a national. Yeah, I forget what it all is for. It's
National
basically
Heritage.
and something about endangered, rare and endangered species, but I can't get ESP out of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to do that consultation before the Snow Riders can start. And again, this grant was just awarded, so it's work that'll be coming, benefiting the conservation areas here in the next year. We have 2 years to execute all of these projects, but you know, I think we'll be pretty much done at the end of the year if the weather cooperates with us. So these are the areas, these are the projects that are in the scope of the grant. And the matching funds will be the labor from the Lunenburg Snow Riders. We would be doing a kiosk in the Table Rock Conservation Area, doing some gravel work in the Lane property trails, doing a de-stumping project and trail clearing of the northern end of the small town forest, kiosk near that proposed trailhead at Reno, trail kiosk at Hawes Conservation Area, Cowdrey Hardley Wildlife Area. We'd take that existing kiosk and move it out closer to the road so people actually knew it was there. Cowdrey Conservation Area, the two parking areas, we would be adding 2 inches of gravel to the existing parking areas just to kind of let them be a little bit less wet during the inclement weather. And then at Robs Hill, we put in 2 kiosks on Robs Hill Terrace and Burridge. And so we would add one to Robs Hill at Sunset Road at the kind of the top of that hill where the trail system comes out. Yeah, do you guys want to know more details about that, or is that good enough for a refresher? I'm happy to go either way. People are sleepy.
I'm good.
Okay, well then I will hand it back to you. That's it. And again, you know, as we start to kick these off, I'll bring back to the Conservation Commission, you know, a notice that we're getting ready to kick something off, and we can go into details as each one of these things comes up. All right, back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mary. Greg, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
So Anna has been telling us for a while that the Beers were gonna file a something here. And I'm happy to hear that they've engaged you and that you have something to tell us tonight.
Yeah, they did. And I do have to confess, I'm covering for a colleague of mine, Seth Donahoe. When he heard I was going to be on the commission tonight, he asked if I could cover this. So Seth has been handling this, but I think I'm up to speed. So around October 4th, 2021, I think your commission issued a negative determination of applicability for the construction of a staircase down to the access down to the water off of Sunset Lane at 205 Sunset Lane, which also included a seasonal dock portion in the water. And I think that this is the plan that was submitted at that time. So let me just caveat this by saying that my firm, Dillison Road, was not involved back in 2021. This application was filed, I think, by the applicants. So fast forward to today, or several months ago, the dock was, the staircase in the dock system was constructed. I think that there was some concerns as to how the dock structure or the stair structure and the dock was constructed relative to the approved plans. I think that at least a notice of non-compliance was issued to the Beers and asked to get some additional information, at which time they engaged us to provide some additional information. So we went out, we surveyed the property, and we prepared this exhibit plan, which I think you folks have as an attachment to a January 6th letter that we sent to the commission, which I hope you all have. So we surveyed the property, we got the existing contours. We did an as-built location of the existing staircases and deck structures, as well as the existing dock, which you can see here as labeled. It's the solid lines on the plan. And we overlaid the sketch plan that I think was associated with the RDA, so that the commission could see the difference between what was permitted by the RDA process and what was actually constructed. So you can see here in dashed line is what was shown on the sketch plan. Again, that plan is this. So we most of the stairs and the deck system had dimensions, so we were able to get that on there pretty well. But the dock structure here doesn't really have a lot of guidance, so we kind of did the best fit that we could to show that overlaid. Survey as-built of the site show the solid line is what was actually built. Okay, so you can kind of see the difference. I think if you look at the difference between the hatched, the dashed line and the solid line is it's probably just a function of using assessing information versus using survey data. You can see that the proposed deck and dock system was sort of further into the lake on the sketch plan versus what was actually constructed, and that's just probably a function of how the assessors maps are shown relative to where things actually are on the ground when we do a survey plan. So the constructed stairs and deck is actually further away from the water than what was actually permitted by your commission. There is a little bit of a discrepancy in the size if you scale off the square footages of what was permitted, particularly on the stairs and deck sort of permanent portions of this project. The permitted amount of deck was 222 square feet, and the as-built was 313 square feet. So what we have done when they hired us was to try to come in and see if we could come up with a resolution to this discrepancy. We have submitted along, again, as an attachment to the January 6th letter that I referred to, we have submitted this plan, which again shows the permanent locations of the existing stairs and deck portions, as well as the dock, which is a seasonal dock, which is removed during the winter months. And we're proposing a pretty significant slope restoration program here. There is overstory vegetation in this area, canopy trees and the like, but the ground cover and sort of slope restoration is fairly sparse. So we're proposing to beef up that area with understory plantings, which we provided a schedule of plantings on this plan. We do hope to preserve an area right in here that's currently used to store the dock sections. I think what the if my understanding is correct, they actually take up the surface of the dock, so the planks on this dock, and they store it on the deck, and then they take the structural aluminum frames and they store those right here on the shoreline. So that is where we stand this evening. I'm sure you may have some questions. I'm not sure I'm going to be in a position to answer all of them, but I'll do the best I can. I guess we wanted to make sure that the commission understood that the applicant is being responsive to this, wants to get it behind them, and look for an opportunity to move forward. So with that, I'll stop talking, Mr. Chair, and happy to take any comments or questions that you folks may have.
Thank you, Greg. This is what I remember about this. That this was approved by the commission. There was a dock and stairs and deck approved. And Rich may know more about this. I know certainly Jeff knows more about this than I remember. Will remember more about this than I will. But Jeff's not here tonight. And that what was installed was not what was approved. Both of the decks were bigger. We approved more of like a landing in the stairs rather than decks. And what we approved was, it was gonna be on the land, and they actually put the feet of the bottom deck in the lake. Rich pointed out, well, now you're in the resource area. That's no longer RDA territory. That's an NOI territory. And we gave them a positive determination and told them they had to file. And we've been waiting for them to file. And and one of Nadia's last acts before she left was to take and send out letters to all of the things that have been hanging around for a while, the enforcement actions, and this was one of them. And Ann has also been working, to get them to come in, with an application. And so that's what I remember about it. If Anna or any of the other members of the commission, I'd have to go back, and if this is going to come in, I would want to go back and provide all the members with the minutes of the relevant meetings, for them to look at, right before the hearing, and probably your firm should probably look at the minutes of the relevant meetings, because that's my memory, and my memory is often suspect. So
Mine too.
does anybody else have anything to add or different, or tell me I've made a mistake here, or whatever?
Mr. Chairman, that's what I recalled as well.
Mary Wilson, Mike LaRouche.
Yes, that's what I recall as well. I think Rich Bursch said that he only would approve a plan that we had approved that was existing, and this is not anything like what we approved. So that's what I remember as well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anna, do you have anything to add?
Do not, just because it was a little bit scattered in the sense of like when I was trying to look on the OneDrive for any type of information in regards to this. So I would have to again dive into the minutes to get more specifics, because honestly I didn't know exactly the background on this, aside from that there needed to be some form of submittal, because the work done was not accurate to the previous filing that was done, which was the RDA.
And I'm betting that if you reach out to Jeff Viviano, because Jeff was intimately familiar with this application, he might be able to direct you because I think it was maybe 2 or 3 meetings where we discussed this, so that we can call them up, and maybe make a little minute summary for everyone to review. So we're all reading from the same script.
Okay.
And Greg, I appreciate the fact that you take and you showed tonight you're doing the due diligence, but I don't want to try and create a hearing tonight. It's
No,
but I just appreciate, that you came here tonight to try to show that, yes, they are being, because we were concerned that we hadn't heard from them.
Yeah.
And we were about to start getting more strident. And this calls off, the need for more stridency. Because they are making good faith efforts, to comply. So
some of the in these type of situations, the lack of response might be more directly related to their workload of the engineers that they hire. So I do apologize. I think they probably contacted us quite a while ago for this, and we're just submitting this to you now. So am I hearing you say that? So let me say a couple things, if I could, and make a couple of requests. I don't think we've seen the correspondence that your commission has sent to the applicant. If there's a way we could get a copy of that, it would be terrific.
we can try.
Yep. and I understand there's been a lot of flux with your administrative support, so we understand that, but if and when that information is uncovered, if we could get a copy of that, it'd be great. I will look back through minutes. Do you know roughly when you discussed those, when those meetings?
No clue, but I
Okay.
will, I'll also do a search of our Google Drive
Okay,
for this address. And
Okay.
that should pop up some stuff.
okay,
And I think it was, July. Because I think
Okay.
it was one of the first site walks that I went on.
okay. We'll take a look through the minutes from that era and see if we can bring ourselves up to speed on this. And then the only other clarifying question is, am I understanding you correctly? You've requested that they file a notice of intent?
I think they were directed
Okay.
at that hearing to
Okay.
file a notice of intent. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, because Rich Birch said, you put dock legs in the lake.
Okay,
And
Well, it was the deck, the lower deck
the deck,
actually
I'm
rests
sorry,
on
you put
the,
deck legs in
on
the
the,
lake,
yeah.
okay,
non-removable. That, so now you're in the resource area.
Okay.
You've gone beyond what's allowable in a, in a RDA. Plus, we were more than a little annoyed at them because everybody else looked at what they had. Okay, we had like three other properties along that little stretch there. They
Yeah.
looked at what they had and said, well, I want that too.
precedence, yeah. Okay.
And, but what they had was not what we permitted.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
so
hearing
that-
you loud and clear. Yeah,
so we were a little, the commission was a little annoyed because, and then there were all these questions about parking and safety and was it an accessory? We had other people where they didn't have a house that was near the, it wasn't part of some lot, so the building official, and I don't know if that happened to these people. If
Yeah.
the building official ruled, oh, you can't put any stairs there or a deck there because it's not accessory to an existing residence or some such thing like that. So,
okay,
and
I'm hearing you
I'm
loud
not
and
sure, and I'm not sure about that, so
okay. Yeah, so, okay, I understand. I guess it sounds like we have a little bit more facts gathering to do. I guess I appreciate you hearing me this evening. And I think I think you've heard that the applicant is intending to be responsive here, so and wants to move past this. So we will work with them. And
Super.
We'll work with Anna to make sure we get a complete record in place and proceed to the next step. So thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to give you a little
all right.
update.
I bet you have other things to do other than conservation night tonight, Greg. You'd like to
Not-
go,
Yeah, like go to bed,
yeah,
half an hour past my bedtime.
all
Yeah.
right. Good night, Greg.
All right, everybody. See you.
Back to our agenda. I'm looking for us to create a purchase order to MRPC GIS department to create more signs. I'd like to take and create create a trail map for the Hawes conservation area. We have no trail maps for Hawes conservation area, and now that we have completed our bird habitat thing there, I'd like to do that if and when we finish the Reno cut, which they're not going to start unless the ground freezes or until the summer when it dries out. I'm going to want to make a trail map for Reno, and there's like maybe 4 more, some tweaking we have to do on our maps of the large town forest. So I'm looking for someone to make a motion for $600 for a purchase order to MRPC from our Timber Rights Fund. Please.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
You're welcome.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call, Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Again, taking a little out of order, I also look for a new purchase order for Smart Sign. Want to make trail signs for the Hawes property. We need a sign to put alongside Table Rock that says the road is open to the public, but closed to vehicle traffic other than snowmobiles and the residents. And there's a few signs that are missing at their large town forests. So I'm looking for a motion to create a purchase order to Smart Sign for $500.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Mary. All right, for second by Mary. First, made by Mary, second by Katie. Roll call, Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
I for myself. And I just want to mention that I stopped and met with Pat Huckery, who is the regional director of Mass Wildlife. Her office is in that little building on the way to Air on the left, where you go by and it says Mass Division of Wildlife, about the Hunting Hill hayfield. And she said that if we wanted to take and improve the bridge there and provide access to hay the field there, that was fine with her. We didn't need to take and meet with Shirley. But the first thing to do would be to take and do a bird inventory in the springtime to see what's nesting up there. So I'm gonna reach out to John Jones, who is a noted birder, and maybe also our Sam Welsh, who's another, says he's into birds. See if we can't do a bird inventory. Are there bobolinks? Are there whippoorwills? What's nesting up there? In the springtime, and are they still nesting there? So, can we hay it, and when can it be hayed? And so on and so forth. So that's just an update. Update on encroachment issues. 26 Mulpus Road. When Mary and I were out doing our site, Mike has his hand up.
Yes, Bob, I was just wondering if I could be included in that bird sighting. I'd love to go with John Jones to help out if I could.
Super, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to slight you. I was not aware of your birding interest.
I do. I do have an interest, and I've been with John many times, and he's got some nice equipment other than binoculars to sight particular birds.
And he has some amazing cameras.
Yes,
And he has amazing talent.
He has a 500 millimeter lens. I'm very lens envy when I go out with John.
Yes. Well, he's done a fair amount of work for us, or for me, out on the large town forest and the Lane property. He's been.
Well, that's great. Yeah, he's a great resource.
A huge asset. Oh, absolutely. I didn't, that, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So I will send an email out to the three of you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm gonna be copying Pat Huckery on that. But I first was gonna make a phone call with John to say, what should the emails, because I'm not sure. there was a couple of different bird species that they didn't want it. Pat thought there was these species of field birds nesting there and she didn't want it mowed before like the middle of July or something like that. And, I got to figure that out. And then there's all kinds of things that have to be done, but that's step one. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you. Update on 26 Mulpus Road. I think I sent to everyone some pictures of 26 Mulpus Road. They have a shed and a pole fence that's encroaching on the conservation land. And I'm looking for permission to also refer that as our fifth to be the last encroachment issue in our current batch that we're referring to town council.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. A motion and second. Roll call. Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
I for myself. Anything on Hollis Road residents, Mike?
Yes, we do. On January 16th, Cam's Heating came in and did their annual cleaning of the heating system. And there is an invoice for $245, which I think has been circulated among some of the emails. I'm hoping that Anna has gotten that invoice. And is that something that we vote on for payment to get an invoice?
I think we already authorized that at a prior meeting. I could be
Okay.
mistaken, but I'm pretty sure we already authorized that at a prior meeting.
Okay,
And when Rebecca is in, she'll pay it.
okay. The other thing that I did get that email from you from Emily Merlino regarding some of the issues regarding 123 Hollis Road. And I just got word today through Julie Bellevaux that the septic system was pumped September 16th, 2021. And I'm assuming, given that most of septic issues are every 2 years, so I will sort of write to Emily, letting her know, and that was one of her concerns about when that may have been pumped, and also give her the idea that, we do take care of the heating system. We have an active pest control contract. We have a heating system cleaning a schedule, and I will submit that to her. So, and that should pretty much answer all of her questions.
Super.
And
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
no, that's all I have.
And I would just note that at last night's selectmen's meeting, they appointed the brother of one of my mountain biking buddies, Chris Ruth, who lives on Northfield Road, right around the corner from you, to be the new facilities director. So we now have a facilities director.
Excellent, excellent.
So I think we should reach out to him about the next time we have a problem there with help with that, because I'm thinking he probably can help us
Okay.
and take some of this burden off of you.
And what is his name?
Chris Ruth, R-U-T-H. You know the house on Northfield Road, if you go towards Gilcrest, on the left where they just put on that farmer's porch across the front of it?
Oh, yes.
That's where
That's
he
it.
lives.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear. Glad to meet up with him. It won't be until mid to end of March for me when I can do that, but as I'm still snowbirding in Florida.
Oh, I feel bad for you.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough duty.
All right. I don't think there's any administrative determinations tonight or certificates of compliance.
No.
Anna, yeah, any new updates on these enforcement act or enforcement orders?
So, so obviously the other ones kind of have been taken care of, or like 23 Cove Road, like that'll be for next meeting, and then obviously taking care of 336 Arbor Street, and then as well as 205 Sunset. So the only two that are really I'm waiting for is the 48 Oak Ridge and 54 Pine Grove, which they've done their submittal, but there's just still a couple forms like 48 Oak Ridge. They still need to submit the copy of certified butters list as well as a notification. And I actually have been emailing with her this past week, and she wanted a continuance on it just because she hasn't been able to put out the notification yet. And then as well as 54 Pine Grove, they've been responsive, but I'm pretty much just waiting on that submittal. They've submitted at least the RDA. It's just the other like permission forms and the butters list and so on. Yes.
Super, thank you.
No problem.
Howard Street driveway, I did write that letter to the select board and to the town manager. I have not heard back, and I'm quite sure that they are both up to their eyeballs in tax abatement issues, and I'm not going to bother them for at least a couple weeks about that. Again, and timber sales, we already talked about. Nothing about any committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to committee reports, I did have a land use kind of request that I wanted to bring before the commission. So, and this is on behalf of the Lunenburg Snow Riders. The club is looking to add some bridge protection down to the Peter Charpentier Bridge this winter to protect the decking. It's getting a little bit beaten up by snowmobiles going over it with ice picks, and then occasional and probably much less wear, but winter use from people and mountain bikes and stuff with spikes and whatnot. But we'd like to go in and add maybe 3 or 4 rows of 2x6s. And the club believes that we probably had enough timber left over from the Cowdrey Bridge redecking that the Conservation Commission provided budget support on. So we're not asking for budget support. We think we've got that covered. We just want to ask for permission to go in and add that deck protection.
I think you can do that without. Does anybody have any objection? I don't think we need a motion for that. I would just say bring a hammer driver. Some of those nuts have backed, the long screws with the hex heads have backed out of the decking and are sticking up a little there.
Oh, okay, good point. I'll go down there and look at that. I have to go down there in the daylight to see that, do I?
No, you probably could see it with lights. I can see it with my lights.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any committee reports, any communications, any public comment?
So last week there was a open space committee meeting, and I was not able to attend, but I did go back and listen to the recording. And just for general awareness, there was a lot of dialogue about 2 parcels that the town of Lunenburg owns on Lake Shirley. One in particular is over at Parmenter and Ruth Road. which is down very much in the southern area of the lake. It's a smaller parcel that I understand is have sloped. Then there's another area, Zero Reservoir Road. That's a much bigger parcel. Most of the dialogue was around the Parmenter Road area, and there was some dialogue from Parks and Recreation to consider looking into adding kind of a kayak access, kayak canoe, rooftop car boat kind of access in the Parmenter Road area. And then, later turned into conversation about the Zero Reservoir Road for similar. One of the things that came up was a question about whether they would even be permitted to gain access to the lake there, given they'd have to cross the 30-foot no touch zone. And I don't think there's anything that we have to, decide or anything of that nature, but I just wanted to raise awareness with my fellow commissioners that those issues and or opportunities, depending on how you're looking at it, have been brought up in the open space committee so that you have some awareness, because if those do move forward, either in open space or most likely through the Parks and Recreation, eventually I think somebody will be coming and talking to us about allowing access in one or both of those areas. Mr. Chairman, did you have any other comments? I think I had heard that you also reviewed the recording.
No, I watched the whole thing. I'm a little, I personally think, well, I'm not on the committee anymore. You're representing us, and so I'll keep my thoughts to myself. But I think they're doing great work, and thank you for representing us on the Open Space Committee.
Mary, are they aware of the fact that there is a public boat launch on Lake Shirley?
I don't know if they are or not. I don't know if I was.
Are you talking about Shady Point?
No. Right before you get to Shady Point off Reservoir Road, there's an access road that takes you into what they call Stump Cove. But it's public, and you can park a few cars in there, and it's ideal to launch your kayak or your canoe or something like that.
I'll make certain I bring that up.
Thank you, Mary.
And that's actually owned by the town, Rich, as far as you're aware.
I'm not sure. The best thing to do would be to reach out to the LSIC, because I hear them talk about it all the time.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
If there are no communications, public comments, or anything else, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Katie.
Second,
Second by Mike. Roll call, Katie,
Aye.
Mike,
aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Good night, everyone, and thank you for coming.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.